Hello, everyone. This is Michael Wright and Chris Martínez, and we've got a great guest here today, Peyton Parsons. And this is a special guest for me because I had a chance to coach Peyton. Only, I think was it 2 seasons or 1? I think it was 2, right?
2 seasons.
It was
yep.
two seasons over at the high school, and of course, when the girls are playing high school, they seriously get into it. And at least in the state of Colorado, I know in Texas and other states, high school soccer is a big deal. And I loved coaching you. But Peyton, welcome to the iATAC Soccer Podcast, and I'm super excited to have you here. Chris, any initial words?
No, likewise, Peyton. Thanks so much for joining us, and super excited to hear about your journey and pick your brain on all things soccer.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yes, for sure. And I think just right out of the gate, I think it would be great for the guests and the people viewing this to hear about your soccer journey and just kind of how you became this great player at Texas Tech. Why don't you rewind and kind of give the journey of Peyton in the soccer world? Let's sit back and just hear from you how you've kind of evolved as a player and how you got there.
Yeah. So from the earliest time that I can remember, technical skill was always a big part of my game. And so I started going to Corver camps when I was really young. I did that for so many years, more than I can really remember. And then I ended up coaching Corver for a few camps too. So that was a big part of my development as a player. And then in my younger years, 3v3 tournaments were a huge thing. And so I went to, I think it was 4 national championships, the ones that are in Florida, right by Disney World.
Yeah.
And so I always did that. And I think that also developed my technical game throughout that. And then I played for Sean DeDiker most of my younger years. And so he was my coach for, I want to say 5 years. So he's developed me a lot. I talked to him actually before I ended up committing to Texas Tech, and just catching up with him was really cool, full circle moment. And then from there I was at Storm, so he coached me there, and then I moved to Real. So then Lauren Donaldson was my coach for a good 4 years, and Lyle helped coach with that too. So he developed me, and that was just the biggest part of my career because it was high school, and that's when colleges started looking at me and everything. So I really enjoyed playing for Lauren. And then he also just challenged me as a player because he would move me to different positions that I had never played before. So I always played attacking mid, and Lauren wanted me to play outside forward, which I didn't know how to play, but I love that because then going into college, I wasn't just one position. I had multiple things up my sleeve. So, and then I transferred from Regis to Valor right when DA, I think, or Real dropped out of DA and went to ECNL. So that was awesome because I finally got to play high school soccer for the first time. I think some girls on my club team cried when we found out that we could play for our high school, because it's just a different atmosphere, and playing for people who are not just your parents. That was a really cool part of high school. But yeah, playing for you, Mike, like you said, and Coach Schultz, that was just so much fun. And it honestly just boosted my confidence going into college. Being an older girl playing high school for the first time, it was cool to just have this new leadership role and help with the younger girls too. That definitely helped me now going into my senior year at Tech, just developed me as a leader. So yeah, then the recruiting process was super fun, very rewarding, and it was cool just being able to talk to coaches and hear that all the hard work that I did throughout high school really paid off. And I ended up finding my home at Texas Tech.
That's great. Wow.
That's great. I'd like to speak to you further about that recruiting process, Peyton. So everything that goes into it, obviously, you're being courted by various schools and trying to make decisions in what might be the best fit for you academically, athletically, soccer-wise, all these things. And just as a young player, you go to these events, playoffs, showcase events, and you have the sidelines that are just jam-packed with college recruiters, coaches, scouts, whatever it may be. How was that as a player when it came down to, you're warming up, you see all these eyes on you? Did you feel added pressure, anxiety, or did you kind of embrace and say, this is my time to shine. I can't wait to show all these coaches and scouts what I'm about, what I'm able to do, anything along these lines? How was that for you?
Yeah, no, it was definitely a new experience. A little more added pressure, but I guess I don't know if I couldn't wrap my brain around the fact that how much pressure it was back in the day. But to me, it was just another game and just more people that I could go out and impress with my skills. So I always saw it as just like another competitive challenge to me. But the recruiting process for me was a little different because I started getting recruited in 8th grade, and I would go to all these camps and talk to coaches. And then I think it was sophomore year, everything got cut off, or maybe even freshman year. So I thought I had an idea of which school I wanted to go to, and I had already talked to all these coaches, and then everything got cut off. So I didn't talk to coaches for a couple years, and then I resumed, and I hadn't even talked to Texas Tech before then. So they came into the picture that I forget which date it is, like June 1st or something.
June 15th.
Yes. And so they called me June 15th, and I'd heard of them, but they just weren't on my radar. And I fell in love with the program, and just having that first conversation with Tom, he talked a lot to me about my career after college and if I wanted to pursue going pro. And that was just something that not many of the other coaches.
Okay, Peyton, can you hear me?
Yes. Can you hear us?
Yeah,
Or
of
hear
course.
me?
Yeah.
Okay.
So not many coaches actually pursued an angle like that, is what you were saying. So he talked not only
Yes.
about Texas Tech having a great program, but what's it going to look like for you after college?
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Really
So that
interesting.
really, it sparked my interest a lot, just that he saw my potential for even after college. And I think just our whole conversation, I mean, it was more about who I am as a person. He already knew my soccer skills. So it was just like finding out who I am off the field as well, which also stuck with me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's a great story. And, I got a chance to, like I said, coach you for 2 years. So I saw the competitive nature that you had. So the answer about going into a game, your mindset is, hey, I've got a challenge in front of me. I need to win this game. And, there could be a lot of people watching me right now, but I've got this. I got to get it. I got to get this done today. And so just knowing you and that answer, it fits perfectly because you're such a warrior and you're such a competitor. I want to go back to something you said because I think it's really important for younger players to hear this. You not only were on a club called Storm and then moved over to Real, but you put a lot of work into your game outside of the club. And if I heard you right, that was a big, big part of your development. Now, to flip that around, if you didn't do that, what kind of a player do you think you would have turned out to be? A lot different, right?
Yeah. I don't think I'd love the game as much as I love it right now.
Yeah, because you play, we have this phrase that was on one of our earlier podcasts where you can go in the game and you can just play free. Like whatever's in front of you at the moment, you have the skills and the mindset as well as the tactical knowledge to say, I know what I need to be doing here and I can actually do it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's being able to play free. And it's all the work you put into the game early on the technical side that gave you that. Now, with that being said, though, I want to talk about an area you didn't put enough emphasis into from the high school to the college. And I only know this because I had a chance to talk to you. I think it was at church, and you had mentioned the transition from high school to college. Could you speak about the physicality of going from let's say the high school, days or college or club days to the college area, and how you came into that environment. And you got girls that are a lot older that have been in weightlifting programs, etc. When you rolled into that environment, that was difficult. Could you speak about that? And then how did you have to try and catch up?
Yeah. So going into college, I knew that the girls were going to be big, especially in Texas. They just seemed to recruit a lot of bigger girls. So that was a challenge to get through. But I think learning how to use the skills that you have, like your technical ability, because if a girl's bigger, you got to use your, I'm only 5'3", so I got to use my height to my advantage. So using my technical skill to get around her. I think also a big part of my transition was my fitness and learning how to grow and develop into college fitness. Because you can honestly, when you're young, you can run forever. You don't have to stretch before games. You just basically get thrown into a game and you're like, okay, I'm ready to go. And that's definitely not the case in college. I think that's something that if I were to look back on, I should have run more before I came to college, and that would have prepared me a little bit more for just how intense the games are. When you're playing 90-minute games, you have to be fit enough to play, not only just to run the whole time, but you have to be able to use all your moves, shoot, you're fighting off girls. So there's just a lot more to the game, especially when that physicality is just a higher intensity level. You have to have that fitness. So I worked really hard over my sophomore year. It kind of was the first time that it clicked, like, okay, if I want to be a great player, I got to change this. And so I worked my butt off my sophomore summer and really worked on just running and getting in shape to be able to play that full 90 minutes.
Did you have a trainer?
No, okay. So my Texas Tech trainer I talked to and kind of, I had many conversations and meetings with her about just how I was frustrated and really didn't like where my fitness level was at. And I was doing all the runs that she had put in the program, but to me, it didn't fit who I was as a player. I needed to do more. And so I kind of thought to myself, I was like, okay, if everybody's running 3 days a week, I'm going to run 5. And so that was the first change that I had in that sophomore year summer, where I was like, I'm going to run 5 days a week. I'm going to still have good time to recover and have a couple days off, but I'm just going to run almost twice as much as everybody else. And that really ended up paying off. And that was something that I kind of just figured out by myself on what worked best for my body.
Well, I was just going to say one last thing. It helps running at altitude.
For sure.
So you're up here doing an extra 2 days over your teammates, and you're at altitude. You're over a mile high in the air, and then you go down to basically sea level, right? And so you're coming in incredibly fit, and it paid dividends. So you showed up, and you could just see right away, because you put that physical aspect back into your game at a higher level. You could see when you went into preseason, things were clicking differently, right?
Yeah. I trained with a few of the Real coaches that summer before I went back. I trained with April and her team. And I remember vividly her calling Tom and being like, this is a different girl. Like, she's going to be amazing this season. And that Tom told me that, and that really boosted my confidence, that I was like, wow, someone else sees that I've put in the work. Okay, now I just build off of this. So that was a cool moment.
Yeah. And I'll just, Chris, I'll let you go here next, but at iATAC, we talk about a holistic player. And so you came into Texas Tech highly skilled, right? Understanding the game, playing multiple positions. You're a two-way player. You could dribble out of things. You can pass out of things. Good defender, understood everything. But really the piece that was missing in the puzzle for you was the holistic side. I don't think mindset was an issue. Maybe we'll get into that a little bit. Maybe the confidence was dropping a little or not. We'll get into that. But we always talk about the 4 pillars of the game, the technical, the tactical, the physical, right? That we just spoke about, and then the mental side of the game. And you were coming in, I think 75% of the boxes were checked. and you were like, I got to work on the physical side. And when
Yeah.
you did that, it completed the circle and you took off as a player. That is so cool. Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great story, and it's great to hear. What I took away most from what you said is how you figured out what you needed, right?
Mhm.
Every player's different, every player's journey is different, but you were able to figure out what you felt you needed that best suited you, and then you empowered yourself to go out and put this to work, put these to action, so to speak. So, and obviously, like April said to Tom, this looks like a different player. And once you heard that, you said, wow, that made me feel good. I feel more confident now because someone else is seeing the hard work that I'm putting in. So naturally, right, you felt good. You're excited to get back on campus and to show your coach exactly what you have done. And my guess is you get back there, obviously, there's some heat and humidity, right? No problem, because physically, right, you can get through it. You can endure. Your fitness level's high. You've put the work in. And now, because that's in place, it allows you to really focus in on the other pillars of the game, right? Because I tell you right now, it's a game of running. It's a game of talking. When you are fatigued, the easy things become more difficult. The difficult things are darn near impossible, right? So you didn't have to worry about that. Your engine, your tank of gas was full. You're able to buzz around, do what you needed to do, right? So I think that's a really, really valuable and important story that you shared with us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I loved it. So let's move into this concept of I'm a club soccer player. I played high school soccer, and now you're going into a big time program, Texas Tech, and you've got to sit there and you got to compete, right? And so you got a lot of girls that are really good around you too, by the way. And you've got girls that have been in the system for 2-3 years, and there's only 11 spots. Everybody that's going there, they all want the playing time. So you've got to learn to compete. So I'm really going to go after the mind, right? And what's going on upstairs. So when you come in as a freshman and you're trying to make, things work, and you're seeing girls and you're in the situation, my question is the mindset, how did that evolve for you as a player, going from, let's say, what you thought was a solid mindset? Like, what's the difference of how you have to adjust from going from club, and how you think about competing and talking to yourself and solving, the self-talk in your head and keeping your confidence high? You were coming in highly recruited. Your mindset, your confidence was high, but I'm sure there's moments that freshman year where you had some dips in there and you had to get out. Talk to the listeners and the viewers how you struggled through that, obviously got to the other end of it, and what did you do to try and sharpen your mindset or improve your mindset, going from, let's say, club high school to this program?
Yeah, I actually watched a podcast recently, and it was about one of these women's basketball players, and she was talking about confidence and just how women tend to just have less confidence. We come in and we're humble, but we're almost too humble, where we aren't confident to the point where we're like, okay, I'm going to be on the field. I'm going to start. I remember freshman year coming in and I was like, oh my gosh, everybody here is good. I don't even know if I'll make the traveling roster, which is crazy because the mindset of that and the player that I am, that shouldn't have been a question, but it's just the fact that you're in a new environment and all of the girls around you are so good that you start questioning yourself. And so I think that's something that I really worked on throughout college, is just finding that confidence and believing in yourself, because that way and that thinking just kind of tore me down. And so I think after freshman year, just realizing, once obviously I made the traveling roster and then I was playing in games and I was competing for a starting spot, just knowing that I am that great player. I've worked that hard to be there, and so to just trust in my abilities. And so freshman year I got a few starts, and then we changed formation, so the position I was playing got cut out of the lineup. We ended up going to a 4-4-2. And so that was hard because I was like, okay, I won this starting spot and now I'm back to being on the bench again. And so I think who I am as a person, that's just another challenge to me. So I'm just going to keep fighting for that spot and keep working and working. And so I think I got a little complacent freshman year, and I was not that I was happy to be getting in a little bit, but I was just like, oh, this girl already won the spot. I'm not going to get on the field. And then sophomore year, I worked my butt off and I started on the bench again, and then I would sub in. And by the end of the season, I was playing just as much as the starter. And so I think that's something that was hard to get over too, is the fact that I was putting in all this work to play as much as a starter, but I still wasn't starting. And that also is what led me to get to my junior year where I had the best season in college. So I'm like, okay, this is another competition. I'm going to get on this field. I'm going to start. So then I'm going to keep working off the field twice as hard as everybody else, stay after practice, get there early, whatever it takes. I'm going to win that starting spot. And so I think after I had that competitive fire come back sophomore year, my confidence started going up, and I just wouldn't accept the fact that I'd be on the bench again.
Wow, that's fantastic.
No, it's once again very interesting, because I think for the younger listener and viewer out there, very, very common, very typical when, we're dealing with these high level, top NCAA Division I teams. Basically, the players that are being recruited oftentimes are a big fish in a smaller pond, right? And then you come to this university, you come together as a team at the college level. And like you said, now you're dealing with all these very, very good players, right? And what I'm getting at, back to the big fish in the smaller pond, oftentimes, if you're the best player in your club team and maybe you're not playing as well as you can be or not giving maximum effort, you'll still be on the field consistently because you're probably better than, the other options. So it's not like there's any consequences. However, you get to the college level, everyone's good, right? Roles are being defined, competitions at the highest point or level. Now you're trying to figure out the new dynamics of this new environment, and you realize, like, wow, right? What is this all about? And some players embrace it. Some players cower. Some players take a little bit of time to process it, like you did, and realize at first you're like, wow, is this really right for me? And then you realize, wait a second, you mentioned, you kind of got complacent at one point, but then you said, no, I'm not accepting this. I do belong here. I am a great player. I will get myself on the field consistently. And look at your junior year. It's the best season you had. So a lot of great lessons here as well, Peyton.
Yeah, and I want to jump in because this is a perfect time to. So you went from this freshman year, sophomore year, the best season you've ever had. So let the listeners hear this. What I have in front of me is some college achievements for you, Peyton. I have 2024 Big 12 first team all conference, recognized for exceptional performance during the season. Big 12 offensive player of the week, September 4th. You remember that one?
Yep.
Okay. Awarded after scoring 5 goals in a single week, including her first career hat trick in a 4-0 victory over Weber State. Top drawer soccer team of the week, September 3rd, selected for outstanding offensive contributions. And then top drawer soccer national top 100 players, ranked number 63 nationally as a player as of October 2024, obviously reflecting the impact you've had on the field. United Soccer Coaches All Midwest Region Team, honored for a performance during the 2024 season. CSC Academic All District Team 2024. So this is amazing. Here we come in with the story of, like, Chris said, you're trying to understand you're in a highly competitive environment. Your confidence is a little bit down. You come back sophomore season. You're like, man, I'm going to fight. You fight more. You decide to change some things about your game. And look what happens your junior season, you tear it up, which is great. That's fantastic. I still want to go back after the mindset, because players have this happen to them. So you're on a high, right? But you've also had some challenges before those highs came. A lot of times players need to know you need to struggle, right? You need to have these struggles. And if you look at these struggles the right way, like you did, because let's be honest, you could have just thrown the towel in and said, you know what, maybe I just need to be a bench player for Texas Tech. That was a pathway for you. You could have gone that route, but you said, no, I'm going to go this other route, and I'm going to figure out what I can control and what I can change. Is that a fair statement?
Yep. Very
Okay.
fair.
So you decided to take your own career, and you said, I know what I need to do. I need to really, hone in on this physical thing and get better. And you did, because you knew you had all the other pieces. You knew you had the skills. You knew you understood the game. You just needed to compete at a higher level. You needed to run, cut, jump, all that stuff for 90 minutes better. Okay? We went through that. Now, the mind, though, plays a really important thing, because if you don't get your mind right, Chris and I always say this, if your mind's not right, all the other things below the mind don't work. Your feet don't work. Your thinking's off. You're not motivated as much. The desire's less, et cetera, et cetera. So can you tell us, Peyton, how do you, when you might have a subpar performance and you come off of it and it's just, look, it might have been, for everyone else's standards, it might have been a fine game. But for you, you're like, that was subpar. What's the self-talk or the rebuilding that you do in your mind to get yourself out of what you thought was subpar so you can operate at a higher level? How do you self-talk to yourself? How do you build your confidence back up when you think you might have had a bad game? How do you talk to yourself?
Yeah. I think one part of who I am is just my faith. And so I think knowing that soccer isn't my identity and that's not who I am, that's not what defines me as a person. So that honestly is the biggest thing that helps me on those hard days. But I think also just going, like, remembering who I am, remembering all the work I've put in, and then going and watching film. It stinks sitting there and watching a really, well, in my terms, a really bad game and looking at the mistakes. But that's just what makes you better. And so you see your mistakes and you're like, why would I do that? And it's already clicked. The next game, that same possession, that same position comes up, you're not going to do it again because you've already gone back. You've prepped yourself. You've seen this before. It's not happening again. My first game of the season was against Penn State. And so Tom had me take the PK in the game, and I shot my PK exactly how I shot my PK against Princeton the year before to win or to go on to the Sweet 16. And so she saved it. She knew exactly where it was going. And man, I definitely tipped. And after the game, I'm like, gosh, I did terrible. I could have done better for the team. I could have helped us out. I could have gained confidence. You just think of all the things you could have done, and it's like, it's over. Let's go on. Let's move on. I'm angry that I missed that. So then what do I do the rest of the season? I think I had 6 PKs the rest of the season, and I made all of them. So it's like this mindset where you turn it into a competition. You know the mistake you made, and now you move on and you just correct it and be better. I knew that after that, I'm like, okay, well, I'll never do that same PK over and over again. I might switch it up, do other things. It's just something you go back and watch and film and figure out how to change it from there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's great. That's a learning mindset, and that's also a growth mindset where you'll take a mistake and you'll say, how can I learn from that mistake? And then you move on and you're actually a better player after that mistake was made. I think there's so many players actually that they'll go through that mistake, and you know what the reaction would be? That PK mistake. I don't want to ever take another one again for my team. Mm-hmm. But you're like, no, I know what I need to do to fix this, as I just need to have more variety.
Yeah. And so I think a lot of the times you when you make these mistakes, you put more pressure on yourself than what others are putting on you. So I missed that PK and I'm crying after the game. I'm so upset at myself, and my teammates are like, Peyton, we lost 4-0. That PK wasn't going to do anything. We don't care about the PK. It's okay. So I was taking it a lot harder than anybody else on my team was. And I was most frustrated because I let my team down. But a lot of the times you're harder on yourself than what reality is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great lesson.
Yeah, there's two takeaways for me with this. I think first and foremost, that the self-reflection piece, right? It's never fun taking a peek at maybe some mistakes you had along the way or things you didn't do quite so well. However, it's super important, especially as you climb levels as a player, to be able to see mistakes that were made, process that information, and think about what you could potentially do the next time to correct them, which sounds as though you did, is vitally important. And the last piece to me is the accountability, right? Taking ownership, good, bad, or indifferent, right? Here's how it is, and then I move forward. So I think that's super valuable to hear. It's good stuff.
Yeah, it's really good. So could you maybe for the younger listeners, how do you prepare yourself for a game? So, you're in the locker room, you've got a huge opponent that you're coming up against. The team's going to rely pretty heavily on you plus the other 10 players to get this job done. What are you doing let's say, big game, the pre-game stuff? How are you getting yourself ready to compete? Can you walk us through that a little bit? And maybe this will be some guidance for younger players. They could think about it as well.
Yeah, I think the day before a game, we do a walkthrough. So a lot of the times that's more of my visualizing time or thinking about different plays. We'll literally be in the middle of a walkthrough and Tom's talking to somebody else and I'm sitting there going, I'm going to dribble up this side, cut in, shoot. I'm thinking about different plays that are going to happen in the game.
Love that.
Yeah, so that's usually a part of my day before a game type of stuff. And then day of a game, I'm usually the first person to the locker room. I'm doing contrast, which is cold tub, hot tub, getting my body prepared. Just because the better I feel, the more confident I am to go into a game. So it's that. I'm a little bit superstitious, so I do a lot of the same things where I'm fueling the same, drinking a lot of electrolytes, that kind of thing. And then right before the game, my team, I'm sure most teams do this, but it's a big rowdy locker room. You got the music playing, girls are jumping and screaming, but that's just not how I am as a person and player. So I usually sit in the corner by myself and I have my headphones on, I listen to worship music, and I just get myself ready by myself. And that isn't how everybody works, but that's just how it works for me. So I found out that I can't do what everybody else does on the team. I got to do what's best for me. And so, yeah, I usually just spend quiet time preparing for the game. And then right before we walk out, that's usually when I get very hype.
Yeah.
So
that's great. You said something that you're not like everyone else. And I think that's part of the formula, for success, honestly. If we want to be like everyone else, then you're probably not going to be a standout player. You just can't be. I mean, think about what it takes to be a really great athlete or really great at anything in the world. You've got to sit there and you've got to know what your North Star is, and you've got to know how you're going to walk to your own drumbeat, right? And so who you are. And if, hey, your friends are going out Friday night and you've got a big game on Saturday, let's say, oh, it's a 2, but you're like, no, sorry, I can't do that. I've got something that's in front of me, and that's a choice you're going to make, and that's just going to be who you need to be. So then when Saturday rolls around, you're ready to go. Or like you said, I can't be jumping around like every girl in the locker room. I've got to do the pregame walkthrough. I need to go through my visualizations, and I need to sit down and listen to the music that's going to draw me in and bring that strength out and bring that competitor out. And then, yeah, you do join your team, because guess what? At the point in which the ball is the whistle blows and you guys are playing, You guys are a collective 11 players and you're going to get it done. But the pre-routine is your routine. It's who you are. And that is awesome. And I think that is really important for any aspiring player that wants to be a really, really good player. You got to be who you are and figure out your pre-routine, and it's got to be the best thing for you. And don't just follow the crowd. Great stuff.
100%. Oh, this is great stuff here, Peyton. I know we've touched on most of the pillars, but what we haven't spoken about is the tactical side of the game. And highly important. Once again, we spoke about levels, right? Everything rises as you continue to, as the cream looks to rise, reach the top, right? So from the tactical side of the game, obviously you had some phenomenal youth coaches, right? Organized, you guys competed at a high level, but now you get to the NCAA Division I level. From a tactical standpoint, what did that look like? What was that transformation or transition for you to start processing some of these concepts? And case in point, coaches speaking to you about decision making on the field, areas like this. But tactically, was it a big jump? Was it seamless? What was it like for you?
Yeah, it definitely was a bigger jump because kind of what we've talked about is in high school, you get away with a lot of stuff if you're a good player. It's usually just you do whatever and it ends up working out for you. But when it comes to college, you do have to develop all these aspects of your game. And so I think one of my end of the year things, we kind of talk about what I want to work on going into the summer. And so one of my things after junior year, which was after I had one of my biggest years, is, hey, we got to work on this. And it was as simple as when you pass the ball, move. And it's that's something that could really, really develop in my game and make me a better player. And I'm still learning this going into my senior year. So, I think just movement off the ball has been something that I did do in high school, but I didn't do it to the extent now that I have to actually think about, okay, I passed this, I got to move out of her way so she can then dribble up the field. Or I pass this, I got to help her out because now she's getting clobbered by 3 people. It's more of that thinking ahead, which you don't necessarily have to do in the high school game because it's not as fast as the college game. And I think just developing on the field in the moment, okay, I got to do this, I got to change this, figure this out, has been something that's tough too, because again, the game's just faster. So you don't have as much time to sit there and think about, okay, well, what could I have done here? You got to move on to the next play and do better the next time. So yeah, it's still something that I'm working on right now.
What about inside the communication side of it? Can you speak about that? Are you a vocal player? Is your team vocal? Talk about communication. I mean, obviously it's a much higher level.
Yeah, I think as I progressed through college, I became more confident in my vocal ability. Going in my senior year, I'm actually going to be the captain for the team, one of 3. So I think just throughout the years, I finally built this vocal ability, and now the girls are listening to me, or they look for me to talk to them. And if I'm not talking to them, I'm not helping out the team. So I think just becoming that player, even after a lot of the times it's when we get scored on, the team's flustered, someone's angry at somebody because something happened. And so last year I had to bring in the team and I'm like, look, we know that was a bad goal. We know that was our fault. It's not one person's fault. It's all of ours. Let's just play our game and move on. And it was kind of like a breath of fresh air, and everybody's like, oh, yeah, let's just move on. And so I think it's just, as you grow older, you have a bigger job and more accountability to help out these younger girls. And it builds confidence in them to talk to me too, because I don't want to be the only one talking on the field. And that was something my captain said sophomore year. She always talked, Hannah Anderson, she was like, I can't be the only one talking on the field, because then the people up top aren't going to hear me all the way from center back. So if one person talks, it's contagious, and then it builds throughout the team.
Yeah, no, I love moving off the ball. And, what the takeaway I had is as you get into these higher levels and the game speeds up, the smallest things become super important. So you wouldn't think, like you said, you can get away with it at lower levels where you can maybe pass it and take a break. But all of a sudden it's like, hey, you get to the next level, passing, moving to open space up for other players, your first touch, the speed in which you play, the consistency in which you play a pass to one another, taking the bounce out of the ball so everyone can play faster. These little things that you can get away with at lower levels, forget it. It's going to break down at the next level. And so you're fine tuning these little 1% things. And before you know it, you've got, like I said, between passing, dribbling, moving, taking balls out of the air, you get 2-3% gains there. All of a sudden you've created a 12% gain in your game if you really fine tune everything. 12% in my book is a big gain. I'd even say 5% is a big gain. So all those players out there thinking, oh, I'm good enough right now. You can be better. You can play passes better. You can move better. You can think ahead, right? You can move for others. There's always room to improve. And those little gains, they add up. And next thing you know, you've got 10, 12, 15% improvements. Yeah.
Great point, Mike. So Peyton, I'm very curious here. You spoke about way back in the recruiting process, you mentioned that your current coach talked to you about potentially playing professional soccer, right? So now we're heading into your senior year, your final year of playing, right? So my guess is that aspiration, one of your biggest goals when it comes to soccer is getting that opportunity to play at the next level. If that is indeed the case, what are you focusing on? Or what do you think needs just a little refinement or that attention, right, throughout this season to get you that opportunity? Is there anything in particular you feel things are in place? This is interesting for you.
Yeah, I think, like Mike said, there's always stuff to improve on. And so one of the things I really wanted to focus on this year is just getting more shots on target, because if you don't get it on target, it's not going in. So that's been something that this season I've worked really hard on. I'm coming back from a little injury, but my goal was this summer is to just work on shooting. So I'm starting to get back into that. And it's hard because, again, in high school, you shoot and the goalkeepers aren't as strong as they are in the college game. And so as long as you have a hard shot, it might go in. But getting to the college level, I've just found out that the goalies are better, everything's better. So my shots not only have to be strong, but they also have to go where I want them to go. And so, my goal has just been to work on shooting more and just getting more shots on target so that I have a higher percent of scoring. That and just producing more assists has kind of been my biggest thing about rolling into the next year, is just producing more for my team.
Yeah. What about the defensive side of the game?
Yeah, that's kind of always a hard part as an attacking player, is that defensive side. The way we play is like we kind of try and trap the people on the sideline or outside backs. And so that comes with the same thing as like strength and conditioning. I got to figure out how to sprint to a player, but also break down so she doesn't just fly right past me or cut me inside. And so, working on that too is just as big, and learning how to get my body in. A strength of mine has always been the weight room. So even though I'm not tall, I'm going to be strong, and I'll give you a good fight even for being a little player. So using that to my ability and working on that.
So you talked about this personal goal of striking the ball better. Do you do anything outside of practice or before practice at Texas Tech to fine tune your skills, like when you're in season, or how do you look at staying sharp when you're in the season?
Yeah, in the season is tough because you also have that balance between letting your body recover and being able to go out and do extra. I think a lot of it comes from accountability in the summer on your own, working towards that. And so also the spring season is huge because you only have a certain amount of time with the coaches. So it's like, okay, you have 8 hours this week with the coaches. You got to be doing extra. You can't be doing the minimum if you want to be going pro, or if you even want to be an impact player on the field. So I think that's just been a big part of who I am. Is I will always, if anyone asks me, I will stay after practice or go out early. That's just been a big part of my game. And a lot of the times, if I am, like, going back to the question about like getting frustrated of things happening in the game, if my shots weren't falling or they weren't on target, I will be out there the next morning shooting because I'm frustrated at myself. So the only way to get better is to practice more. So I think during season, it's really important to not overdo it. So the time that you do get, maybe you go out and you take 20 shots and that's it. But those 20 shots you have to make count. It can't just be a whack at the ball. It's, okay, I got to focus, get my mind right, figure out that shot was good. I got to redo that all over again and figure out how or what prepares me mentally and physically to get that shot. So I think it's more just about quality, not quantity in season.
Yeah, no, we at iATAC, we talk about training with purpose, right? It's not putting in 5 hours of just being, out there going through the motions, but, the intent of really zoning in on what you're doing. You're zeroing in on it and you're saying, I got to make this small amount of time really count, and I got to get my body feeling right, and that rhythm and how it felt and how I struck it, I want to be able to repeat that. So the mind body's got to be working really well, and you're really, really dialing in on the details of that. And you're right, it's the quality that you're trying to go after, not the quantity, because you've got a lot of demands on your body. Plus you're a student athlete. You got to go to class. You can't just sit there and play soccer all the time. So what is the position you are playing then? You said, like, I see you as a forward, listed as a forward, as a midfielder. Then you told me you're attacking midfielder. You played multiple positions. What are the positions you're going to be playing?
Yeah, so my freshman year, they were kind of moving me all around. We played a 4-4-2, but the two up top, there was kind of like a drop down forward.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why I was kind of put as a midfielder / forward.
Mm-hmm.
But ever since then, we play a 4-4-2 box. So there's 2 defensive mids, 2 attacking mids in the midfield. And so I usually play the left side attacking mid.
Okay, that's a great position for you.
Mm-hmm.
No, you were doing that all your life, so that's perfect.
Yeah.
That's great. So do you have a professional player that you admire and follow, and then you say, man, I'd love to play like her or play more like her?
Gosh, there's so many. I think I've always followed Sophie Smith and Mal closely just because of the Colorado connection, but it's also cool seeing someone who came from your club and now is such an amazing player, because you think about, oh, I was there. I played for that club. I played for that coach. I could have that same potential in the future. And so I think it's been cool watching both of them play, especially Sophie. She's just incredible. I mean, every time she's on the ball, it gets me more excited to go out and play myself.
Right. Well, we had a head coach, the Dallas head coach on, and he was talking about, the great players that he's been able to coach. And he says they're just flat competitors. If there's a number one trait, they want to win and they hate to lose. Mm-hmm. And that's a real separator. And that desire to win, that desire to get better, that desire to compete, I can tell you, at least in this conversation, I can hear it coming out of you. And so I think you're positioning yourself really well, not only for a great season your senior year, which I think is the most important thing, is get the results, go as far as you can in the tournament, and personally have a great season, which I think you're setting yourself up to do. And I'm excited to see what happens. But I also think you're setting yourself up with the mentality that you have. And again, I keep going back to the mindset. The mentality that you have, plus the other things you've worked so hard on, is positioning you to have this great senior year, as well as the opportunity to potentially move on as a pro. So it's been really great having this podcast here today. Chris, any parting comments or words?
No, I agree, Mike, and we can't thank you enough, Peyton, for jumping on here with us and sharing your story. And moving forward, we'll certainly be paying attention to what that season looks like, and owning in on you personally and seeing how things go. And it's great. I think you just provided a lot of valuable insight and guidance for those that are listening and watching. And I feel the sky's the limit. Keep doing what you're doing, and let's see what happens.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was fun for us too. Thank you, Peyton.
Thanks,
Good luck,
Peyton.
good luck in your season.
Take care.
Thank you so much. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.